Hi, my name's Phil Bainbridge, and in this video, we're going to take a look at making a copy of a file using Google Apps Script code. So I'm back in my Google Drive folder, where we're going to create a few files in order to piece all of this together. The first thing we need is a template file. So I'm going to go to New, Google Docs. Now, this is the file that's going to be copied and duplicated every time we run the code. So I'm going to give the file a nice name. I'm just going to call it template file in this particular example. And if you wish, you can type some text in the document itself, just so you can see that it copies the entire content in the same way as when you were doing this via Google Drive. I'm going to leave that file open for the moment because we'll need to come back and collect the ID from it at a later point. The next thing we're going to do is we're just going to create a folder where we want the new Google Docs to be created inside of, just to show that we can point to almost anywhere in Google Drive and have these new items created in there. So if I go back to New on the left and Folder, and I'm just going to call it Save Files Here. You'd give it a bit more of a practical name in reality, but they're just for demo purposes. Again, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open that folder just in a new tab there, because again, at some point, I'll need to grab the ID for our app script code. And the third and final thing to create then is our Google Sheet, in which we're going to put our app script code. So I'm going to go to New, Google Sheet. I'm just going to call this Copy File Demo for the purpose of this exercise. Then we'll go into the script editor. So I'll go to Extensions, App Script. Once we're loaded, we'll give the project title a name, and I'm going to give it the same name as my Google Sheet file. So I'm going to call it Copy File Demo. On the left-hand side here, it's good practice to rename the file itself for the app script. So I'm going to go rename. I'm going to call it Copy File using the camel case naming convention, lowercase c, capital F. I'm also going to give my function name the same title there as Copy File. So we're just mirroring the two there. And then just before I hit save, I'm just going to put my cursor in between the brackets, hit enter a few times just to give myself plenty of space to be able to put the code in, and then click save just to make sure I've made no errors at this point. So the purpose of this then is to get an existing Google Doc in this demo, a file, and make a copy of it and put it into a specific folder. So let's include our comments as we usually would do. So 2 forward slashes. And the first thing we need to do is get the original file. This is the one that we've created here called the template file. So we're getting something, which means we typically need to start as a variable, var. And I'm just going to call my variable file at this point in time. Now I'm going to set that equals to, and I'm going to use the Drive app in this particular instance. Because we're navigating Google Drive, we're not too bothered about the fact that it's a Google Doc or it could be a Google Sheet. So we're using the Drive app quite generically there. Use the autocomplete if you wish, just to help avoid any typos. And I'm going to put dot, and I know I want to get file. And as I start typing, I can narrow down my results there by get file by ID. Okay, and if I remember to put my brackets in, so what it wants there is an ID as a string. So if we go to the template file that I have here on this tab, the ID is everything after the D / and before the / edit. So it's usually a combination of letters, numbers, and symbols. So I copy that, and inside either single or double quotes, I want to paste that in. So it should turn red to help identify that it's a string. I'll put my semicolon at the end, and I'll just hit save to check I'm happy there. So in that one line of code now, we will have access to this template file to be able to make a copy of it later on. The next thing we want to do then is we want to get the destination folder for new copy of file. So I'm writing this in a bit shorthand text. If you want to be a bit more explanatory, that's absolutely fine. But we need to know where we're saving these items. So we're going to kind of do exactly what we've done up here, but this time for a folder. So I'm getting something. So I'm going to start as a variable. In this instance, I'm going to call it destination. You may call it destination folder if you wish. As long as you're consistent, that's absolutely fine. Again, we're going to use the Drive app. I'm just going to hit enter and let the autocomplete do the work for me. If I insert my full stop, I'm going to get something again. Clue last time is we did get file. If I do get folder, just cut off slightly there. So if I expand that, you can now see get folder by ID as the option. So same as we did before, we've got our brackets and we want the ID as a string. So where I kept the folder open here in my other tab, the ID this time being everything at the very end. So folders / and then the ID. Again, it's so we can move this folder anywhere in Google Drive and not lose contact with it in the app script code. So in single or double quotes again, I'm going to use double quotes, just paste the ID in there. It should turn red to highlight it's a string, semicolon to end your line and hit save at that point. So we're almost there. There's one extra item that we need now. We've got the file, we've got the destination folder where we want to put it in. We now want to give it a name. In this example here, we then are going to create a document name. So again, we're just going to use a comment to do that. And we're just going to create what's called a static name. So that means it's not going to change. It's going to be the same name, which in reality is not the way to go, but in this demo it is. It means if you were to rerun the code again and again and again, you'd get lots of files called the exact same name. In reality, you'll probably pull the data from a Google Sheet, so it updates automatically. So we're going to save the name in a variable, and I'm just going to call mine doc name, again using camel case with a capital N for the second word. And then again, in single or double quotes, because this is just a string, we're going to call it my new script doc with a semicolon at the end and hit save to check that that's happy. Now we're ready to make a copy of the file. So I'm just going to hit enter a couple of times to give myself a bit of space. So let's insert a comment again with our 2 forward slashes. And this is the part where we make a copy of the file. Now, after this, I want to get the ID. I want to get the URL of the file, actually, because the URL is going to give us a direct clickable link to where we can get to the actual item. And it might be something you pop in a spreadsheet. So I'm going to store the making of the file in a variable so that we can access it later on, as you'll see. So I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to call it new file. Here is the file on line 4 stored in a variable called file. So let's call that here just by typing it in. You copy and paste it if you wish. And if we put a full stop to access our different methods here, you can see there's loads of things we can do with commenters, viewers, etc. One of them is, if I start typing the word make, is make copy. So if I open my brackets here, what I'll do is I'm just going to push the screen down slightly so you can see the help box here that's trying to give us some information. There's actually 4 different options we can do with make copy here. So if I use the drop down arrow there, I'm going to go to the very last one because this is the one we want to do. And in here, we want the name as a string and then a comma and then the destination using the Drive app for a folder. So 2 of those, we've got both of those items there we want, so we just need to piece them into the little jigsaw. So document name exists here on line 10. So I'm going to copy that and paste it in like so. And then with the comma, you can see the text is now highlighted the next bit, which is the destination folder. Destination folder for us is here on line 7. So I will paste that in like so. I'm just going to move the lines back up just to make it look all a bit linear. And we'll put our semicolon in there to end and hit save again, like so. So the last thing we want, just to kind of additionally approve, we'll obviously see the new Google Doc in the folder, but I also want to log its URL. So we're going to insert a comment that is get new file URL. We're getting something, so we're going to store it as a variable, and I'm going to call it new file URL. It's up to you how you write the word URL. as long as you remain consistent when you're calling it in a variable. You might want it in all capitals, you might want the U in capital letter. As long as you're consistent, that's absolutely fine. So this variable is going to be equals to the new file that we've got here, because when the code runs at this point in time, it has made a copy and has a new file stored in that variable. So I'm just going to do a quick copy and paste just to show you can copy and paste or type it if you wish. I'll put my full stop in. Again, we're working with a file, so there's similar things we saw when we're doing the make a copy option. But I know that one of the options, if I start typing get and a capital U, is get URL, like so. And if we just open and close our brackets and a semicolon, we don't need to enter any more information into this. So just make sure you've got your capital U and lowercase. In this instance, you have to follow the method as it is. It's not quite the same as the variable name. Then we're going to do our usual logger.log. So capital L for logger.log. Open our brackets. And in here, we want to just log the URL of the file, but I also just want to put a little bit of text before it so that the logger looks a bit more friendly. So in double quotes, I'm going to type new file URL is with a colon and a space. And then on the outside of that double quote, I'm going to put a plus and then the variable up here, that is new file URL. This will make much more sense in about 60 seconds when we actually run this and see it. But basically, the logger is going to look a bit more like a sentence. It will say new file URL is, and then it will have the URL along with it. It's nicer to do if you've got various bits of logging throughout your code. It means you can help understand which logger is running at that point in time. So if you hit save, that's everything we need to run this. So if we click the run button, you'll be asked to authorize your Google account in order to run this. This is where you make sure prior to doing this, you've only logged into this one single Google account. So I'm going to allow that to run. Making a copy of a file takes maybe 5 or 6 seconds in Google Apps Script. So just be aware of that. So here's what we're looking for. We started the code. There is my logger.log sentence now. So hopefully you can see the new file URL is, and then you've got new file URL is, and then it appends the actual URL there for it. The obvious other check for us here is if we go to the Google folder itself, inside of there is our new script document, which if we make a copy of, again, has that little bit of text in there. So that's it. You've used some AppScript code to make a copy of a file. Obviously, in this example demo here, if you run it again and again and again, it will work, and all it will do is it will just create the same document with the same name in that folder. But as you see, this is a starting steps to be able to do something much more dynamic with data from a Google Sheet, for instance. Thank you very much.